Hi everyone. I am just here to share a brief story about the journey that I have been on for the past several years. I have been trying to reach a diagnosis. I have been very sick, and it was unknown as to exactly what was going on in my life during that point. Very briefly, because I may make several videos just until we get to that point. I'm going to start from where I am today and go backwards. I know some stories go from the journey starting and go to the end, being that this journey has been such a long, arduous process for me. I'm going to start backwards. So I'm going to just say that I have a condition, as you can see by the title, called endometriosis. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of endometriosis and maybe do not have a full understanding of what endometriosis is, which is why I'm going to start from the back and start from the back, and go to the end, because that was a part of my journey. Once I did receive the diagnosis, I had absolutely no clue as to what endometriosis was, nor how it would be treated or what would go on during this diagnosis. I will make several videos about my diagnosis. I am very far behind in my diagnosis chronicling, but chronicling may not be a word, whoops. But that's just me, I'm really goofy. So, starting in this journey, I did not think to chronicle the journey just simply because I did not fully understand what endometriosis is. So at this point, this is October, I believe today is the 7th of 2022. I am actually in recovery. July the 19th of this year, of 2022, I had a major surgery. Well, actually on July the 19th, I had a colonoscopy, in which I'll explain why I had to have a colonoscopy the day prior to the major surgery, which was July the 20th. So, let me back that up. July the 19th, I had a colonoscopy. And the colonoscopy, although they knew that I had endometriosis, my colorectal surgeon decided to order a colonoscopy because of the symptoms that I was having. And of course, I was also losing a ton of weight. She did not want to go in and be surprised by cancer, because I had quite a few symptoms which were pretty scary. And July the 20th, I actually had the surgery. The surgery was supposed to be brief. I had previous MRIs done throughout this journey, so maybe I'll just go between year 21 and year 2022. In 2021, I had been having a lot of issues. I had vaginal bleeding as well as rectal bleeding, and the vaginal bleeding started in July of 2021. Just to go back in the story a little bit farther, the reason why the vaginal bleeding was kind of scary, I had previously had a hysterectomy in 2019. I had a total hysterectomy, in which that's another part of my journey, and I'll get into that maybe in another video. But in 2019, I had a total hysterectomy, which was also an unplanned part of my journey. I had a total hysterectomy because originally I was diagnosed with fibroids. So they did do the total hysterectomy. I thought that life would move on. Unfortunately, I was also going through some very personal things at that time, which that could be another video. I have been through a lot. So in 2019, November 2019, the day after my birthday, I had a total hysterectomy. About 6 months later, I ended up moving back here to New Orleans. I am from Louisiana, as you could probably tell by my accent. No, I do not have a New Orleans accent because I am a transplant, even though I'm from Louisiana. So in 2020, during the height of COVID, I had to uproot and move back home to New Orleans, which was kind of difficult because, of course, it was COVID and trying to find a place to live. And I'm originally 3 hours from here. And I had my hysterectomy in Alexandria, where I'm from. And so in year 2020, I started having these strange symptoms that I had been having prior to the hysterectomy, in which I blamed a lot of my symptoms on, I thought that I was depressed because, as I said, I had a lot going on in my life, in which I can hit on that later if you'd like to hear that story. I thought that I was depressed. I thought that it was the situation that I was in that was causing me to be sick. And then when I moved back here, I said, okay, well, maybe it's getting reacclimated to life in New Orleans and starting a new job. I thought that maybe that's why. And when I say I was having symptoms, I was either very constipated, or on the flip side of things, I would have diarrhea. This was something that I had dealt with for years and years and years, and they told me I possibly had IBS. I had been told that several times, but no definitive diagnosis. So in 2020, my stomach became distended again. I became really sick, and I blamed it on the diet. I also said that it was because I was possibly depressed because of the things that I had gone through. And I was just making excuses. I was also diagnosed as a diabetic in 2019. So I was taking medication, which for my diabetes, which would sometimes cause me to feel full and bloated and sick. So I blamed a lot of this on that. So during the year of 2020, I was constantly, when I would go see my doctor, I would always tell them, I don't feel well, I'm sick, something is going on, blah, 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 cut my medicine. So they were back and forth with my diabetic injections, and they would change my medications from time to time, and still no relief. I was on anti-anxiety medication because, as I said, I had dealt with quite a few things over the years, and so I asked to be off of that medicine because I thought maybe it was making me sick. At this point, it was around April of 2021. I had changed most of my medicines. I was still really ill, so I decided maybe I need to lose weight. I transferred. I do work for a major hospital here. At that time, when I first moved back, I took the first job I can take, which was a unit secretary. And unfortunately, it was a lot of evening shifts. It was all evening shifts. And so I blamed a lot of my issues on the job. So I transferred. By this point, it's July of 2021. So I was, of course, not feeling well, always sick. And when I say sick again, it was nausea, constant nausea. I had lived with this nausea since about 2020, since after the hysterectomy, and I'll explain more why I keep bringing up the hysterectomy. But in 2021, in July, I woke up one morning to get ready for work. I wiped, and there was blood on tissue. I immediately said, well, I don't know, because I had also been having other symptoms. I always have blood in my urine. Nobody could explain why. I just constantly had blood in the urine, but now it's manifesting, and I wiped blood. I ignored it for a week, but it became worse. It became more like a menstrual cycle. I started bleeding more, so I tried to schedule with my GYN, which I thank God that I ended up going in with a GYN doctor, because I did not think I needed to see a GYN anymore, because, as I said, I had had a total hysterectomy, and I just felt like there was no need. But my doctor, my primary doctor, insisted, in which she's such a thorough doctor. She insisted on a lot of things. She insisted that I saw a nephrologist. She insisted on a GYN. So thank God that I had the GYN. But when I went to schedule with my GYN doctor, I noticed that I could not get in until November. And as I said, this was in July of 2021. So I sent a message um, to the office asking, should I come in because I don't know why I'm having bleeding. Um, it took scheduling forever to return, and finally, I guess they got in with my doctor. So in August, when I go in for a visit, my GYN said this should not be happening. Basically, there was blood everywhere. I was bleeding really badly, so I think she began to panic. She sent me in for a CT. Well, when the CT came back, nothing showed, pretty much. It made no sense why I was bleeding. So my doctor, a few weeks later, sent me a message and said this was a primary care issue. I needed to go to my primary doctor because I had no uterus, so there was no explanation for the bleeding. I needed to see my primary. I immediately messaged her back and said, nah, you don't bleed for no reason vaginally. That's not a primary issue. So she called me. She offered to freeze the area because she said she could see that there was a tear in my vaginal cuff. So she said that she would repair the area with by freezing it. There was tissue coming through it. So fast forward a couple of weeks, I go in to see her because at first I was like, nah, I don't want to have that done. I'm okay. Bleeding didn't stop. So she told me to come in a few weeks and we're going to do this as an in-office procedure. Well, I go into the office and I lie back on the table and she sets up the prep to do the freezing, and the room immediately gets quiet. And she goes and she sits at this little desk that she has in her room, and she comes back and she examines me, which was extremely painful. So she goes and she sits and she turns and she looks at me and she says, when he did the hysterectomy, did he say he removed everything? I said, yes, ma'am. He said he removed everything. So she said, I'm trying to understand what's going on. And so I told her, well, I can pull up the notes on my phone, and I showed her the notes. She said, it's something going on. And she said, I cannot in good judgment, I believe she said, I may be quoting her wrong, fix an area when I don't know why or what's going on. And my heart sank because at this point I'm scared, I'm bleeding, I'm experiencing a lot of pain, and at this point I'm having pain vaginally and rectally, and I'm having these strange rectal symptoms, and I'm really sick, very, very nauseated and sick. So the air goes out the room, I get really scared, and I keep looking up because I'm looking at the time. I didn't think it was going to take me this long to explain this story. So she says, I'm scheduling you for exploratory surgery. She said, I can go through the bottom and fix your vaginal cuff because I have a vaginal cuff due to the fact that I have a hysterectomy. She said, I'm going to fix the vaginal cuff, but I'm going to also go up top to see what's going on, why you're so nauseated and sick. And at this point, I had already scheduled myself for a gastroenterologist to also find out why am I so sick. And so he was trying to set me up for an EGD, but at this point, we're still in the middle kind of COVID. So they put off the EGD, but when she said she'd do an exploratory surgery, I'm like, okay, this is perfect. I finally get the diagnosis for sure if it is irritable bowel syndrome, because that's what they had been telling me. October of 2021, I'm scheduled for the surgery. I don't remember the exact date, but my friend came in with me because it was supposed to just be a day surgery because, as I said, they were going to close the vaginal cuff with the tear in it, as well as go in up top and fix what was going on up to see why I was so sick and nauseated and all these other issues. Long story short, I wake up from the surgery. My friend looks at me and says that she says she can't do anything for you. Well, I don't know what that means. So the following day, my GYN at the time calls me and she says, it's bad. I didn't know what that meant. She said, I suspected it, but I didn't suspect that it would be this bad. At this point, we need to do an MRI to see how extensive it is, but you do have endometriosis. confused. I just had a hysterectomy in 2019. How is it possible that I have endometriosis this bad? She says that I have two good friends who are a urogynecologist as well as a colorectal surgeon. I'm going to try to get you set up with them, but I first need you to have an MRI done to see how bad the endometriosis is and how extensive, because they need to see. So this was in October of 2021. I was not scheduled to see the specialist until I think December, and she said, well, hopefully this will get you in quicker. It's hard to get in with specialists, and they actually specialize in hematology oncology. So this would be a good step for me to see how this could be treated. The long story short, they come back. The MRI shows that the endometriosis had become a mass, and it was wrapped around my rectum. My rectum was actually wrapped around the mass, the endometrial mass. It was throughout my pelvic region. It was so heavy that it was tearing through my vaginal cuff. That's why I was experiencing the bleeding vaginally. The endometrial mass was wrapped, my rectum was wrapped around that. It was in my bowels. And so that's why I was having the struggles when I would go to the bathroom and try to have a bowel movement, which I never knew if it was an actual bowel movement or if I was struggling with that. I guess I'll stop the story there, and I can come back and explain further about what led to this surgery that I just had in July. I'm going to end it with the October surgery and of 2021, which is where I was diagnosed. I will possibly put my MRI results in there. I'm not sure if I'm going to add it to this one, or when I come back and do a video for part 2. I didn't want this to be such a long drawn out thing where you just listen to me talk, but it is a story, it is a journey. So yeah, I'm gonna stop it here. October of 2021 is when I was diagnosed with endometriosis, which was pretty bad, and I'll get to the rest of the story which led from October 2021 to this month, which is October of 2022, and maybe a hit on some of the things that happened in the surgery in 2019 and some of the things that surrounded that and what brought me back here. So all of these are stories. For those who are sitting there listening, I appreciate you greatly. It means a lot. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video. Have a good day. Thank you.